"Touch me there, fat nurse!" Dying mountain man begged his obese caretaker, healing his broken heart. Snow slammed against the windows of Pinecrest's only clinic when the mayor said the words that made everyone go quiet. "Send the fat nurse," Edmund Whitmore muttered, tossing a crumpled, blood-speckled note onto the desk. "If anyone's foolish enough to climb Eagle Peak in this storm, it's her." Heads turned, men smirked, women whispered behind gloved hands. Evangeline Harper froze with a tray of bandages in her arms, cheeks flushing hot beneath the harsh lamplight. She'd heard every name over the years, but it still stung when they said it like that. Fat nurse, heavy girl, too big for her own good. The town doctor picked up the note, eyes narrowing. "Lucian Thorne," he read aloud. "Wounded by a grizzly. Fever. Infection. Refused 3 doctors. Says he'll shoot the next man who comes near his cabin." Someone in the waiting room snorted. "Let him die, then. Mountain Freak brought it on himself." "Show some respect," the doctor snapped. "He used to be the best physician this town had before he—" His voice trailed off. No one liked to talk about the day Lucian vanished into the mountains with grief and a rifle. Evangeline put the tray down, wiped her hands on her apron, and picked up the note. The handwriting was jagged, smeared as if written between tremors of pain. At the bottom, in a shaky scrawl different from the mayor's, a single line had been squeezed in, half faded by a drop of blood. "Send. A woman. A nurse. Someone who isn't afraid. Someone who isn't delicate." Behind her, someone chuckled. "Well, that rules out every lady in Pinecrest except Miss Harper here." The room filled with rough laughter. Ava's chest tightened, but she kept her gaze on the paper. $200 if she could save him. A man everyone else had given up on. A man who'd rather die than let another doctor through his door. She pictured the map in her mind, the frozen river, the switchback trails, the cliff paths that even lean trappers avoided in deep winter. She imagined her own body struggling through drifts up to her knees, lungs burning, thighs aching, every cruel word about her weight echoing in her skull. Too slow, too heavy, too much. But she also imagined something else, a man alone in a dark cabin, rotting from the inside out, refusing help because the world had already taken everything from him. She knew what it felt like to stand over a dying person and wish you could trade your own heartbeat for theirs. "I'll go," she said quietly. The laughter died. The doctor stared at her. "Ava, those trails are brutal in summer. In this storm—" "I know." She lifted her chin. "But I'm a nurse. If he's still breathing, he deserves a chance to keep breathing. I'll need a guide to get me as close as possible, a mule for supplies, and a day to prepare medicines." The mayor hesitated, then nodded. $200 if he lives. Nothing if he dies. Evangeline's fingers tightened around the note. If he dies, at least he won't die alone. That night, while wind screamed down from Eagle Peak, she packed her satchel with herbs her father taught her to mix, clean instruments wrapped in linen, and enough bandages to rebuild a man. Outside, the town muttered that she'd never make it. Too big, too soft, too kind for that mountain. Miles away, high on Eagle Peak, a feverish man clawed at his own chest in the dark. His shoulder burned like hot coal, the stench of infection filling the one-room cabin. Through cracked lips, he whispered into the empty air, voice broken and wild. "Somebody, anybody touch me there," he rasped, pressing a shaking hand over his heart. "If there's a God left in this world, send me a nurse who isn't afraid of monsters. If you're listening to this story right now, tell me in the comments where in the world you're hearing it from. Pinecrest might be fictional, but you and I are very real, and I'd love to know where your heart is tonight. The storm eased just enough for dawn to break when Evangeline Harper stepped out of her boarding house door, her breath rising in white ribbons. The satchel of medicines weighed heavily against her hip, and the strap bit into her shoulder with every step she took toward the stables. But she didn't slow. She couldn't, not when a man's life hung on the thin thread of her resolve. Pinecrest was awake early, though not for her sake. Townsfolk huddled on porches and by frozen windows, pretending to stamp snow off their boots while sneaking glances at her. Some looked curious, most looked amused. "There she goes," a woman whispered, loud enough for Eva to hear. "Climbing Eagle Peak with all that extra weight." A man spit into the snow. "The mountain'll kill her before she's halfway up." "She won't make it a mile," another muttered. "Lucian Thorne won't open his door for a soul. He'll let a bear finish the job before he lets that girl lay a hand on him." Ava kept walking, boots crunching through drifts. She curled her fingers tighter around the leather strap crossing her chest. She refused to let them see the tremor under her ribs, the sting blooming behind her eyes. Every cruel comment felt like a stone added to the pack she carried, but she didn't bend beneath it. At the stable entrance, Elijah Red Cloud stood waiting, tall, wrapped in furs, hair streaked silver, the only man in Pinecrest who spoke Lucian's name with respect instead of fear. "You're early," he said in his low, steady voice. Ava nodded. "I couldn't sleep." His gaze softened when it settled on her flushed cheeks and determined eyes. "The mountain won't show mercy. You'll face cliffs, hidden ravines, thin air, and Thorne's temper." "I know. And still you go?" Ava swallowed hard. "He's dying. I can't let that happen while I still have breath in me." The old man studied her a moment longer, her rounded cheeks reddened by cold, the softness of her body wrapped in thick winter layers, the quiet fire glowing beneath her gentle features. Then he nodded. "You have more spine than this whole town combined," he said. "Let's load the mule." They packed herbs, blankets, water, instruments, and jars of salves into heavy saddlebags. As they worked, Elijah spoke. "You know the stories, Miss Harper. Thorne wasn't always a beast hiding in the mountains." Ava's heart tightened. "I know he lost his wife and child." Elijah tied the last strap and sighed. "He didn't just lose them. He watched the town abandon them. He begged for help. No one came." Ava stopped. The wind bit her face, but not as cold as the truth Elijah had spoken. "Pinecrest let them die," she whispered. "Fear makes cowards. Cowards look for someone to blame, and they blamed Lucian for living when his family didn't." Ava clenched her fists. "That's wrong. That's human," Elijah said quietly. "And now you walk into the den of a wounded wolf. His body is failing, and his heart, well, that broke long before the bear's claws ever touched him. You think he'll shoot me? I think he'll try to scare you." Elijah lifted her satchel into place. "But dying men don't always know what they truly want." Just before they left town, the mayor hurried out of his office. "Miss Harper," he called, waving a slip of parchment. "One last reminder. Payment only if Thorne survives. And if you return empty-handed, don't expect compensation for your trouble." Ava met his eyes. "I'm not going for money." He blinked, unsure how to respond. So she turned away before he found the words. By noon, Ava and Elijah were deep into the foothills. Snow swirled around them like blown ash. The path narrowed to a strip of ice between jagged rocks. Each step made Ava's thighs burn, her breath rasp, sweat freezing at the base of her neck. Several times she stumbled. Several times she thought of turning back, but each time she steadied herself, forcing one more step. When they reached the river, a half-frozen ribbon of black water winding through ice, Elijah stopped. The cliffs loomed ahead, rising like the spines of sleeping giants. "This is as far as I go," he said. "Thorn set traps the rest of the way, for bears and for men." Ava gazed up the trail, steep switchbacks, narrow ledges, treacherous slopes hidden beneath blankets of snow. A place built for thin men with hunter's legs, not for a woman of her size and softness. "You climb from here alone?" She nodded, even as fear clawed up her throat. "Thank you, Elijah." The old man hesitated before placing a weathered hand on her shoulder. "If he lets you in, don't be afraid of the anger you see. Under it is a grief bigger than this mountain." She swallowed hard. "I'll try to reach him." Elijah's dark eyes warmed with something like hope. "Maybe you're the only one who can." Ava took the mule's reins and stepped onto the narrow trail. The wind howled. Her boots slid once, twice. Her lungs burned. Snow stung her eyes, but she pushed upward, higher and higher, toward the cabin of a man the world feared and a destiny she didn't yet understand. By the time she reached the final ridge, the sky had turned molten gray. Smoke curled weakly from a chimney ahead. A wooden cabin crouched at the cliff's edge like a wounded animal. Ava's heart pounded, part exhaustion, part dread, part something else she dared not name. She stepped forward. A metallic click shattered the silence. A rifle cocked. A voice, deep, ragged, feral, growled from behind a pile of stacked wood. "One more step, girl, and you die on my doorstep." The rifle barrel glinted through the swirling snow, aimed straight at her heart. The cold metal looked almost blue in the fading daylight, steady in the hands of a man who, by all accounts, should have been too weak to stand. Evangeline froze, breath catching in her throat. The mule beside her snorted nervously, hooves crunching in the ice. "Mr. Thorne," she called, voice shaking but firm. "My name is Evangeline Harper. I'm a nurse. I came to help you." "I didn't ask for help." The voice cracked like breaking stone, hoarse, exhausted, but full of iron. "You're dying," Eva said simply. "Good. Saves me the trouble." She swallowed hard. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears, but she lifted both hands slowly, palms open. "I climbed this mountain for 2 days, through a storm, over ice. I didn't come this far to watch you rot in that cabin." The rifle didn't lower. Snow clung to her lashes, melting into cold streaks on her cheeks. She was shivering so violently her teeth clicked. Then she smelled it, faint at first, then undeniable. The sickening sweetness of infected flesh drifting from the cabin door left slightly ajar. "Your fever is high," she said softly. "Your wound is festering. You know you don't have long." The rifle trembled once, not from anger, from weakness. "Leave," he growled, "before I make you." Ava stepped forward. A gunshot split the air. The bullet hissed past her ear, close enough that heat brushed her skin. She flinched, but she did not retreat. "You missed?" Her voice was barely a whisper. Another tremble in the rifle he hadn't meant to miss. "You're shaking," she continued. "You can barely stand. Let me help you." "I don't want your pity." "It isn't pity," Ava said, taking another step. "It's duty and compassion and stubbornness, maybe." The rifle lowered an inch. His breathing hitched, pain or emotion, she couldn't tell. "You're not scared of me?" he rasped. "Should I be?" A long silence. Wind howled between them. And then, "No," he whispered, voice breaking, "not any more." The rifle slipped from his hand, falling into the snow with a muted thud. Ava rushed forward just as Lucian Thorne's knees buckled. He collapsed against her, his weight heavy, burning with fever. She steadied him with both arms, though her muscles screamed in protest. Up close, he was enormous, broad-shouldered even in illness, towering even as he slumped. His hair was long and tangled, his beard unkempt, his skin pale beneath dirt and sweat, and his eyes, steel gray, unfocused, glassy with exhaustion, looked through her as though she were a fading dream. "You came," he murmured. "Why?" "Because you needed someone," Ava whispered, "and I was the one who heard you." He let out a low, broken sound, half laugh, half sob. Inside the cabin, the air was stale with the odor of infection, sweat, and burnt-out despair. The room was dim, lit only by the dying embers of a fire. Ava lowered him onto a cot, reinforced with rough-hewn planks. Supplies lay scattered. Empty jars, dried herbs, bloodied rags stiff from previous attempts at cleaning the wound. "Why didn't you call for help sooner?" she asked. "I did," he murmured, "but no one listened. No one ever listens anymore." Ava's heart tightened. "I'm listening." He blinked slowly, as if testing whether she was real. "You're not what I expected." "Too fat for the job?" she asked, her tone wry though her chest ached. His eyes flickered with something like shame. "No," he whispered. "Too brave." While he drifted in and out of consciousness, she set to work. She built a fire until golden warmth chased away the damp chill. She boiled water, crushing herbs her father taught her to use. She rearranged the room so she had light, space, and everything she needed. Outside, the wind screamed like wolves circling the cabin. But in here, the world narrowed to the slow, weakening breath of the man on the cot. When she peeled away the filthy bandages, Ava sucked in a sharp breath. The wound was worse than she'd feared, ragged, swollen, oozing thick green-yellow infection. The claw marks ran from his collarbone down his chest in long, angry slashes. "You should have had this treated the first day," she murmured. "Didn't care," he rasped, eyes half open. "Didn't want to live." Her hands paused over his skin. "Do you still feel that way?" He turned his head, staring at the ceiling beams darkened with smoke. "Most days, yes." Ava swallowed the lump in her throat. "Well, I care, and I want you to live, so that makes it my fight now." She cleaned the wound. He screamed. She stitched torn flesh back together. He cursed and clutched the cot until his knuckles went white. At one point, he tried to sit up, shoving her hand away. "Stop," he gasped. "I can't." "You can," she said, gripping his shoulders. "And you will. I refuse to let you die on this mountain." For a moment, he stared at her as if she were the only warm thing left in the world. Then he let himself fall back. Hours passed. Her arms shook with exhaustion. Sweat dripped into her eyes. Her breath fogged in the chilled air. But she never stopped. At last, the wound was clean, packed, stitched, and wrapped. She pressed a damp cloth to his burning forehead. "You'll live," she whispered, "if you fight." His eyes fluttered open. "You smell like lavender," he murmured, barely audible. Ava flushed. "It keeps the medicine from smelling too strong." His gaze softened, heavy with fever, yet strangely present. "No, not the lavender. You smell like a person who cares." Something in her chest cracked wide open. He reached weakly for her hand. "Stay," he whispered. "Please." Ava curled her fingers around his. "I'm not going anywhere." Outside, the storm raged. Inside, his breathing slowly steadied, painful, shallow, but steady. For the first time since she climbed the mountain, Evangeline Harper allowed herself to hope. Snow pounded against the cabin walls all night, rattling loose shutters and moaning through the chinks in the logs. But inside, the air slowly warmed with the steady burn of the fire Evangeline fed hour after hour. Her hands were numb, her back a taut ache, but she didn't stop tending the flames, not when every flicker of heat meant one more chance for Lucian Thorne to live through the night. He lay on the cot, broad chest rising in shallow, uneven breaths, skin flushed with fever. His dark hair clung damply to his forehead. The bandages she'd wrapped now glistened with herbs and salves, each layer meant to draw out infection that clung to him like a second dying heartbeat. By the second hour after midnight, the worst of the shaking had passed. By the fourth, he was no longer mumbling the names of the dead, and by dawn, Evangeline's own eyes were red and heavy, falling shut where she sat on the floor, leaning against the cot with a hand still resting over his. She woke to the sound of a quiet groan. Lucian stirred, muscles twitching beneath the blanket. "Where?" His voice cracked. "Where am I?" Ava lifted her head. Her neck throbbed from sleeping upright, but she managed a small smile. "Still in your cabin? Still alive?" He blinked at her, confused. It was the first time she had seen him look anything other than angry or broken. "You stayed," he murmured. "Of course I did." "You shouldn't have." His voice was rough, torn between gratitude and guilt. "It's dangerous here, and I'm not an easy patient." Ava couldn't help a tiny laugh. "I've noticed." The corner of his mouth lifted, almost imperceptibly, the closest thing to a smile she imagined he'd made in years. He tried to sit, but pain radiated through his shoulder. His breath hissed, and he fell back with a muttered curse. "Don't move," she warned gently. "You'll rip your stitches." He let out a long, low exhale. "You're smaller than most bears, but you command like one." Ava blinked, startled, then realized he was teasing her. "Is that your way of saying thank you?" she asked. "Maybe," he whispered, eyes drifting shut again. Ava stood carefully. Her knees cracked after sitting for so long. She stretched, bones stiff from cold and exhaustion, then moved around the cabin slowly, studying its contents with fresh eyes. It was sparse. A single table, rough-hewn chairs, shelves lined with tools, dried herbs, and half-carved wooden figures. Dust coated almost everything. The man had given up living long before the bear clawed him. Ava set to work. She swept the floor, snow, dirt, pine needles, and stubborn lines of ash collected into the broom's path. She wiped down the table. She stacked the firewood neatly so she wouldn't struggle to reach it. She boiled water for soup and cleaned his instruments with care. Lucian drifted in and out of restless sleep, watching her through half-open eyes. She could feel his gaze sometimes, but she didn't call attention to it. By midday, the cabin felt different, lighter, warmer, almost hopeful. "You can cook?" he asked from the cot, voice barely audible. "A little. My father taught me to make nourishing meals for the sick. You need strength." "Thought you'd make me choke down leaves and roots like the other healers." "Well," she teased, "I might have snuck some roots into the broth." He grunted, a sound that might have been humor. Ava knelt beside him and lifted a spoon to his lips. Just a few sips. He turned his head stubbornly. I can feed myself. No, you can't. Your shoulder is useless right now. A beat of silence. He finally opened his mouth in a reluctant acceptance that almost made her smile. He swallowed slowly, eyes fluttering shut. It's good. Thank you. Too good, he added. I might get used to it. The vulnerability in the words hit her harder than she expected. She looked down to hide her expression, but he saw the warmth in her eyes anyway. Later, Ava checked his wound. She peeled back the bandages gently, smoothing fresh ointment across the healing edges. Lucian hissed a little, breath catching, but he didn't pull away. You're gentle, he murmured. It's my job. Plenty of people do their job without care. And plenty care without being asked. Her voice softened. You've been without both for too long. His eyes opened fully then, sharp, searching, struck by some truth he wasn't ready to face. Why do you speak to me like I'm worth saving? He asked. Because you are. He looked away. You don't know what I've done, he murmured. I know you lost what mattered most, she answered. That breaks people. It doesn't define them. His throat bobbed, the pain in his chest deeper than the wound she tended. When dusk settled, Ava made her own corner of the cabin. She spread blankets beside the fire, close enough to jump up if he needed her. Lucian watched her with heavy, wavering eyelids. You're sleeping on the floor? He rasped. You need the cot, she replied. There's a bed upstairs. Ava hesitated. One look at the staircase made it clear she wouldn't be hauling herself up and down every hour while monitoring his fever. I need to stay close, she said. Lucian was silent a moment. Then, you can take the bed. I'll keep the cot. You can't climb stairs with that wound. He exhaled slowly. Then, stay by the fire. Ava leaned back, exhaustion tugging her limbs down. I will. Lucian was quiet for a long time, only the storm outside filling the space between them. Then, barely above a whisper, no one has stayed with me before. Ava looked up, surprised by the softness in his tone. No one? She asked gently. No one. His fingers curled around the blanket. Not since they died. Wind rattled the shutters as if echoing the hollow ache in his voice. Ava's heart squeezed. She rose, walked to his side, and placed her hand lightly on his uninjured arm. You're not alone anymore. He stared at her hand, at her, as if the words were something he'd forgotten how to believe. Sleep now, she whispered. You need rest. His lashes lowered, heavy as stone. Stay close? I'm right here. Outside the mountain raged. Inside the cabin glowed with a fragile warmth, the first Lucian had felt in 5 long years. And as Evangeline settled beside the fire, she didn't notice the way his eyes opened once more, drifting to her sleeping form with something raw, hesitant, and quietly growing. Hope. Snow still clung to the mountains in the morning light, but inside the cabin, the fire had burned low into a bed of steady embers. Evangeline stirred first, her body stiff from sleeping on the floor. She blinked away the fog of exhaustion and looked toward the cot. Lucian was awake, not feverish, not delirious, awake and watching her. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. The quiet between them was warm, softened by the glow of the rising sun, but something in his eyes was different today. Clearer, sharper, troubled. You're up early? Ava said softly. I didn't sleep much, he replied. Dreams. Bad ones. He hesitated. Bad and good. That's the strange part. She didn't press. She'd learned that Lucian Thorne spoke in half-truths when emotions were too close to the surface. She moved to check his wound. As she peeled back the bandages, he winced, but didn't look away this time. "Infections dropping?" she murmured. "You're healing faster than I expected." "You have a gentle hand," he said quietly, "and you have stubborn flesh." He huffed a soft exhale, almost a laugh. But as she cleaned the wound, his jaw tightened. His eyes drifted to the window, then to the door, then to the floorboards, as if weighing something heavy, something he didn't want her to see. "Something's on your mind," Ava said. "No," he rasped. "Something's on the mountain." She paused. "What do you mean?" Lucian didn't answer immediately. He watched her rewrap the bandage, fingers firm and steady, despite the question hanging between them. When she tied the last knot and sat back on her heels, he finally spoke. "3 days ago," he said, "before the bear attacked me, I saw riders below the ridge, 4 of them, armed." Ava's heart gave a soft jolt. "Bandits?" "No." His voice dropped lower. "Men from Pinecrest." She froze. "They don't come up here," Lucian continued, "not unless they want something." Ava swallowed hard. "What would they want with you?" His gaze darkened. "Not me. My land." Ava blinked. "Your land?" Lucian nodded once. "Everything from this cabin to Eagle Peak's summit belongs to me. I have the deed. Been in my family for 2 generations. Ava felt the air shift. Who would want it? He stared at the window, jaw working. "The railroad." Her breath caught. "Pinecrest's been talking about a new line for months." "They want to carve straight through the mountains," Lucian said. "My land is the highest point, perfect for a signal tower." "And you refused to sell," Ava guessed. "I didn't just refuse," he murmured. "I tore up their offer and told them to leave my mountain." Ava's chest tightened. "So they sent people after you?" "I don't know." Lucian's voice grew strained. "But the day after I saw them, a bear found me. Bears don't roam that trail. Someone drove it toward me. Or onto me." Ava felt ice slide into her stomach. "You think they tried to kill you." Lucian didn't deny it. He just looked at her with exhausted, resigned eyes. "People have wanted me gone for years," he said. "Some because I'm a ghost of bad memories. Some because I'm in the way. Some because they don't want the doctor who failed his family reminding them of their own cowardice." Ava swallowed the ache that flooded her chest. "Lucian, you didn't fail anyone." But he wasn't listening. His gaze had drifted to the rafters, where dust motes swirled like ghosts. "You don't understand," he whispered. "I tried to save them. I tried everything." "You told me this before," Ava said gently. "No," he rasped, voice cracking. "I didn't tell you everything." Her hand stilled. Lucian's breath shuddered. "The night they died, Anna and Lily, I wasn't here. I wasn't even in town." Ava's pulse quickened. "Where were you?" He closed his eyes as if bracing for a blow. "I was miles away. I'd gone to fetch medicine, a rare tincture, something I thought could save them." Her heart ached for him. "That doesn't make their deaths your fault." "I left them alone," he whispered. "I left them in a town that already feared disease more than they valued human life. When I returned, the house was locked. No one dared go inside. No one had even checked if they were breathing." Ava pressed a hand to her mouth, horrified. Lucian grimaced. "I broke the door. I carried them out myself." His voice fractured. "And by the time I reached a doctor, they were both gone." Silence fell like snow over the room, soft but heavy. Ava touched his arm gently. You went for medicine. You tried to save them. I left them, he insisted, voice sharp with guilt. I abandoned them when they needed me most. She shook her head. You went because you loved them, because you believed you could bring back something that might save their lives. Lucian's eyes burned. I failed. Ava swallowed thickly. You grieved. He turned away, jaw tight. And then, Ava continued softly, you punished yourself for 5 years. His breathing trembled. Maybe I deserved it. No, she said firmly. You deserved help. You deserved compassion. But instead, the town let you shoulder the blame alone. He didn't answer. A gust of wind slammed the shutters, making Eva jump. Lucian startled too, more from instinct than fear. Whatever Pinecrest wants, Ava said, standing, they can't have you or this cabin, not while you're recovering. You don't understand, he murmured. If they're truly after my land, they won't stop. And he swallowed, I can't protect you? Ava shook her head. That's not your job. My job is to protect you right now. Lucian let out a bitter laugh. You're half my size. Ava raised a brow. Only if you look at height. For the first time, his eyes flickered with something bright. Surprise, amusement, maybe a spark of admiration. You think you can protect me? He asked softly. I know I can, she said, and I'm not leaving until you're safe. Lucian stared at her, really stared, at her face warmed by firelight, her determined posture, her hand still stained with the herb she used to save his life. You're not like anyone I've ever met, he whispered. Ava smiled gently. Neither are you. Before either could speak again, a sharp sound echoed outside, hooves crunching over hard snow. Lucian's expression went cold. Someone's here, he rasped. Ava stepped toward the window. 4 riders, dark coats, wide-brim hats pulled low, rifles strapped to their saddles. They weren't lost. They weren't visitors. They were searching for Lucian, for the deed, for the land they wanted. And now they'd found the cabin. Ava's heart lurched wildly. They weren't just a threat to him anymore. They were a threat to her. The horsemen fanned out as they approached, hooves crunching through the packed snow with slow, deliberate menace. Their coats were thick, dusted white from the mountain wind. Their rifles glinted beneath the weak winter sun. These were not men who lost their way. They rode with purpose, with the confidence of those who believed no one would challenge them up here. Ava stepped back from the window, pulse thundering in her ears. They found you? She whispered. Lucian's expression hardened, the look of a man forced out of grief into survival. He tried to sit up, but pain shot through his shoulder. He gritted his teeth. Help me, he rasped. Ava rushed to his side, slipping an arm under his good shoulder. He sucked in a sharp breath as she helped him sit against the wall. Sweat broke across his brow. You can't fight them, she said urgently. Not like this. His jaw clenched. I don't have a choice. Yes, you do, she insisted. You can let me handle this. His head snapped toward her. Absolutely not. Ava stepped in front of him before he could push himself to his feet. Her voice was low but unshakable. You can't stand without pain. You can't lift a rifle. If you go out there now, they'll put a bullet in you before you open your mouth. Lucian stared up at her, chest heaving with anger and fear. Fear not for himself, she realized, but for her. They don't know I'm here, Ava continued. Let me talk to them. Let me buy you time. His eyes flashed. If they touch you, they won't, she whispered, placing a hand on his cheek. Trust me." He froze at her touch, eyes softening, breath unsteady, walls cracking. "Ava, I'm not afraid," she said. "Not of them. Not while you're behind me." Before he could argue, heavy fists pounded on the door. "Lucian Thorne!" a man bellowed. "Open up! We know you're in there!" Lucian tensed violently. "Ava, get away from the door." She shook her head. "I won't let them barge in on you." He swallowed hard. "Please, just be careful." Ava straightened her coat, smoothed her hair, and stepped toward the entrance. Her heart raced, but her voice was steady as she lifted the latch. Cold air burst in as the door swung open. 4 men sat atop their horses, looking down at her with startled eyes. They hadn't expected a woman. They certainly hadn't expected her. Soft-bodied, flushed-cheeked, wrapped in layers of wool and determination. The man in front narrowed his eyes. "Who the hell are you?" "Evangeline Harper," she replied evenly. "Nurse." "A nurse?" He barked a laugh. "For him?" Ava didn't flinch. "Yes, he's badly injured and I'm tending to him. State your business." The men exchanged glances, confusion flickering through them. Their plan hadn't included a caretaker, definitely not one who spoke with confidence instead of fear. The leader leaned forward in the saddle. "We just need to talk to him." "No," Ava said firmly. The man blinked. "No? That's what I said." The other 3 shifted uncomfortably. "He's sick," Ava added. "He's in no condition for visitors, especially armed ones. Whatever you want, it can wait." The leader's voice turned cold. "We're not here for pleasantries, girl. There are matters of land and ownership that need settling." "I'm aware," Ava replied, "but you're not setting anything today." He scowled. "Move aside." Ava didn't budge. Her voice lowered, but her fire didn't. "You set one foot in this cabin, and you'll be interfering with medical care," she said. "If he dies because of you, I'll go straight to the marshal. I'll testify. I'll name every one of you." A muscle in the leader's jaw ticked. "Lady," he said slowly, "you're either very brave or very stupid." Ava held his stare. "I climbed Eagle Peak in a blizzard to save a dying man. Which do you think I am?" Behind her, Lucian whispered hoarsely, "Ava, come back." But she didn't break eye contact with the riders. The leader shifted, unease slipping into his voice. "We'll be back," he snapped. "This isn't over." "I'll boil water," Ava said. "Don't keep me waiting." He wheeled his horse around with a frustrated grunt. The others followed. Their silhouettes grew smaller, swallowed by the snow and the ridge beyond. When the last hoofbeat faded, Ava shut the door and locked it. Her knees nearly buckled with relief. Lucian stared at her in astonishment. "You faced them down." Ava leaned against the door, chest rising and falling. "I told you I could protect you." He laughed, a low, breathless sound full of disbelief and something deeper. "You're incredible," he whispered, "and reckless and brave." Ava stepped toward him, hands shaking only now that the danger was gone. "They'll return." "Yes," Lucian said grimly, "and next time they won't just knock." Ava knelt beside him. "Then we'll be ready." He looked at her, really looked, eyes filled with a fierce, raw mixture of gratitude and fear, and something growing stronger with every heartbeat. "You're not leaving me," he murmured. "Never," she whispered. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, their fate tightened. 2 lives bound now not just by survival, but by choice. Night returned to Eagle Peak, thick and soundless, the kind of darkness that swallowed whole towns and smothered lesser hearts. But inside Lucian Thorne's cabin, A single warm lamp cast a soft amber glow across the walls, glow enough for two people who had spent years in cold silence to finally breathe again. Ava sat near the fire, hands wrapped around a tin mug of hot broth. Lucian rested on the cot, his breathing steadier now, his strength inching back like spring thaw. But neither spoke at first. The weight of the encounter lingered. The knowledge that the riders would return pressed on them like a second winter. And yet, something else filled the room too. Something gentler. Something almost fragile. "You should have let me handle them," Lucian murmured, voice low. Ava looked up, meeting his gaze with quiet steadiness. "And you should stop believing you're the only one who can stand between danger and the world." His lips twitched, the ghost of a smile. "I wasn't protecting the world, I was protecting you." "I know," her voice softened, "but I'm not made of glass." "No," he whispered, "you're made of iron." Heat rose in her cheeks, but she didn't look away. Instead, she moved toward him, laying a folded blanket over his legs. He watched her with the reverence of a man seeing sunlight after years in a cave. "Ava," he said quietly, "you didn't have to stay." "I did." "Why?" Her hand stilled. She could have said duty. She could have said obligation. She could have said money or guilt or the calling of her profession. But none of those were true. "You asked me to touch your heart," she whispered. "I couldn't walk away after that." Lucian inhaled sharply, memory washing over him. The night he had begged for relief, not from the wound in his shoulder, but from the one buried deep in his chest. His voice broke. "And now?" Ava reached out, her fingers brushing his, tentative, warm, trembling slightly from exhaustion. "And now," she said softly, "I want to see what happens when it heals." Lucian closed his eyes, not in pain, but in something so close to hope that it startled even him. "People will talk," he murmured. "Let them. They'll come after me." "We'll face them." "They might come after you." Ava squeezed his fingers. "Then they'll learn what a nurse with a stubborn heart looks like." Lucian let out a sound that wasn't quite a laugh, wasn't quite a sob. Something caught between disbelief and gratitude. The fire crackled. Snow whispered against the windows. The world shrank to the glow of the lamp and the fragile connection between two souls who had endured too much loneliness for too long. Ava settled into the chair beside him. Lucian turned his head slightly toward her. "You're safe here," he murmured, "as long as I breathe." Ava's eyes softened. "And you're not alone anymore, as long as I'm here." Outside, the mountain loomed, cold and unyielding. Inside, a single warm room held the promise of something rare. Not certainty, not perfection, but the beginning of a bond strong enough to weather whatever storm came next. Will their fragile love survive the dangers climbing up the mountain? Or will the world beyond the cabin tear apart what they've just begun to build? Every time one of you presses play on a story like this, I'm reminded that distance doesn't matter. Voices find each other across mountains, oceans, and nights, just like this one. Maybe you're listening from a busy city, maybe from a tiny room lit by a single lamp, or maybe somewhere snowy and quiet, like Pinecrest itself. Wherever you are, thank you for spending these moments with me. Tell me in the comments you're hearing this story from which part of the world. And if you still believe love can find two broken hearts in the cold, don't go anywhere. The next story is already waiting for you.